Just a second, there's somebody at my gate. Sure. I beg your pardon. Oh, how nice. Somebody's sending me flowers. I wonder what for.
That would be me.
Oh, darling, you sent those. How nice. What a sweet thing to do.
I had hoped that they would have gotten to you sooner rather than in the middle of
the interview. Well, sweetheart, that's life for you, you know.
Ain't that the truth? Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very special episode of Dial the Gate, the Stargate Oral History Project. I'm David Reed. I appreciate you being here. Elizabeth Hoffman passed away on August 21st, 2003, at the age of 97 years old in Malibu, California. I had the privilege of interviewing her twice over that time. The interview's over at Gate World. I'll be linking it in the description below. The second was when I was at MGM working on Stargate Command, which was a website that was dedicated to the brand, and it was what launched Stargate Origins. And Christopher Judge and I had our own show called Dialing Home at the time, and also I was the host of the official Stargate podcast, which ran for about 12 episodes. To my knowledge, none of that can be located now, but I have my original files, including my second interview with Elizabeth Hoffman, who played Catherine Langford. She was the third actress to play her, and the first in Stargate SG-1. And this was about 10 years after I had spoken to her the first time, and her memory wasn't as good as it was 10 years before. To be honest, if you wanted to get a little bit more information on Katherine, the Gate World interview is the one that you'll want to listen to. This episode encompasses her whole career, and we just had her for about 20 minutes, but it was perfect. One of my favorite characters in the entire show is Katherine. She is the matriarch of Stargate Command. In fact, the interview over at Gate World that I did 10 years prior names her the matriarch in the title of that interview. And she always loved that. She wasn't a big science fiction fan herself, but she understood it. And in my Gate World interview, she did admit that when she passed on the opportunity to return in Moebius to set up the story for season 8's last two-parter episode, years later, in thinking about it again and knowing what she knew about the character then, she wished that she had gone ahead and done it. And there's something that's really sweet and satisfying about that, even though it didn't turn out that way, because she was still very much a part of the story. And the scene at her grave where Daniel was remembering her is one of my favorites. To that end, I wrote Michael, and I asked if he would say something in her memory, in Elizabeth's memory, now that we're celebrating her life a little over 2 years after we lost her. For a young actor, Elizabeth Hoffman was the embodiment of all the right things at the right time. Facing my biggest episode on the show to date, she was the greatest combination of wisdom, experience, strength, and compassion that both the story, character, and individually scene partner required. Although at a phase of her life and career that she no longer needed a job, the work, or even the business at all, she chose to join us on the strength of the character and the writing in Torment of Tantalus. She came back because she had such a great time filming the show, and we with her. Although I never saw her after our time on screen was done, she remained an integral part of my positive experiences filming the show in its early years. Thank you, Michael. I before she passed, I'm going to have to pull up the date. I technically, you could argue, stalked her, although I don't know if that's the case going one time. But I had her address in Malibu because I had sent her a CD of her episode, and she had sent me a very nice autographed headshot a few years before. And I was in the Hollywood Hills staying with Catherine Powers at the time, the Stargate SG-1 writer. And we had become friends, and I fell in love with her pug, and we got to know each other. She's still with us, but she's not as she once was. But I took a drive, and I went to go see Elizabeth. And this is in the middle of COVID, mind you. We've had it at this point, it was around a year at this point. So I wasn't going to go anywhere near her. But I wanted, she was a huge fan of flowers, as you may have heard in the opening of this episode. And so I went and I got her this beautiful plant, and I just wanted to say hello, and if nothing else, just drop it on her front stoop. She comes out, and this gorgeous golden retriever, just the happiest thing. The neighbor advised before I went over to her place, don't let the dog out. And she sees me holding the plant, and all she does is go, "Oh, beautiful, beautiful, just beautiful." And I said, I told her who I was. I don't think she remembered me, but I wanted her to know how much she meant to me as a performer. And I told her I'm going to sit this here among these countless plants. I mean, she had them everywhere. And that's something I'll carry with me for a long time. The interview that you're about to hear is the one that I recovered from my files from my time at Stargate Command while working at MGM. I really recommend that you also go and listen to the one at Gate World. We're going to keep that one over there. And I hope you enjoy hearing from her one more time.
I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. This means a great deal to me and to the fandom. You are the role that you played is so significant to the series. Even though you were only in 2 episodes of Stargate SG-1, your character, who has been played by at least 5 other actresses,
I'll be darned.
is the bread and butter of this whole mythology. You were born in Oregon, is that right?
No, they have made a mistake on my bio. I was born in Southgate in Los Angeles, you know. I'm a native daughter.
Oh, you are? Okay, well,
Yes.
I will go ahead and make that correction. And but are you going to be 92 this year?
I am 92 already.
Oh, okay.
I will be 93 this year.
Oh, wow. Okay, so what is your secret?
I think probably doing something I loved was a big part of it. I had an incredible husband. That's a huge part of it.
Yes.
And I had 2 great kids and gave me 4 great grandchildren. So, I've had a pretty lucky life. I've done a lot of live theater, which is my passion. I got to play Blanche and Streetcar and Martha and Who Was Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and, some good roles. I loved live theater.
There's something to be said for, I mean, television and movies are fantastic for perfecting, your craft and everything else, but there is something to be said for live feedback from an audience that is with you in that moment.
Absolutely. Very well put.
Yes, they go on that journey with you, and
absolutely.
I got to do a little bit of that in college, and I did a few, nothing specific. I was so busy with work, I didn't have a lot of time for the theater, and it's something that I regret now as an adult.
That you didn't do more.
Yeah, because I can sing and I can sort of dance, but I was always focused on, as soon as I could drive, I went out and went after a paycheck. And I only just dabbled in the theater, and it's just something I regret. How young were you when you started acting?
Oh God, I started when I was in grammar school. I remember we were doing a production of Snow White, and I walked in and put my hands on the furniture and found it was dusty, and I blew it away. And anyway, they cast me as Snow White, and then I went through grammar school or high school. I did a lot of work in high school, and then college, all through college.
So you knew from pretty early on that this is what you wanted to do.
Yeah, I really didn't have a choice. I fell into my passion, and it was great.
That's how you supported yourself?
Yeah.
When you look on online, your television and film appearances start after you are 50. So it sounds like the theater was taking up most of that time beforehand.
Yeah, it was, and it was through the theater that they cast me as Eleanor Roosevelt in Winds of War. And I mean, it was just a fluke. They saw me and thought I would be right for it and called me in, and I played it.
You didn't audition?
They just saw me on stage and said, she's right, and they cast me.
To anyone who's listening, if you have not seen War and Remembrance, it is available, and you're going to have to sit down and it's several hours long. It is a tremendous epic.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important, not just if you're into history, but that it's such an important period of our history,
Oh, absolutely. And playing her was such a privilege. I mean, what a lady she was. What an incredible lady.
Yeah, her philanthropy, her kindness toward the common man.
Yeah, she was just wonderful, wonderful. One of the heroines of my life.
Tell us about preparing for that role. Did you listen to tapes of her? I mean, how did you get into that?
Yes, I did everything I could to get to know her better. And everything I did was a wonderful surprise to me. She was just amazing, amazing. And I felt privileged to play her.
You had said when we last spoke about a decade ago that there was actually someone who had known the Roosevelts, and while you were playing her, someone had come up to thank you for your performance.
Oh, yes. I was doing some kind of a scene, and the banquet, or a big dinner, diplomatic dinner scene.
Like a White House scene?
Yes, and he came up to me and said, I knew her, and I knew him, and I thank you for reminding me of it. He was really wonderful.
I don't think any higher praise can be said.
It was lovely. It was lovely.
Yeah, I really recommend anyone to watch it. I think it's important to
it's forget. 2 long episodes. It's very time consuming, but it's worth it.
You have seen the rise of technology. The
Yes, I have avoided everything. I gotta tell you.
Well, you've got a phone, so there's that. What are, just for someone who has had the privilege of being on this earth and witnessing the evolution of our society and the transformations of our culture, is it just, a whirlwind looking back at all this time? Where do you think we are now as opposed to we were, like 50 years ago?
Well, I've just been reading a book called Sapiens, which is a study of mankind over the centuries. And it's a pretty depressing. Mankind has messed up most of the time.
Oh, we're dark. But do you have hope?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah. As many mistakes as we've made, we keep on going. And if we can get the environment straightened out, we will keep on going for another while.
I first saw you in Star Trek The Next Generation. You played an alien with pretty heavy prosthetics.
Yes. Oh, that was Star Trek. That was a very weird experience. I was in the makeup chair. I was for a couple of hours. And after I had all these things coming out of my ears and my eyes and all, God knows what, they sent down several pages of changes.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. An actor's nightmare. and I couldn't see. I had to have somebody read the lines to me, which is not the way I memorized. So it was pure luck that I got through that episode.
Wow. But you had told me once before that you were surprised at the amount of fan mail and recognition that you had gotten for that one episode from the late 80s.
I know. It was amazing. Very loyal crowd who follows that show.
I have wanted to watch Sisters for a really long time, and you were in that series all the way through to the finale.
Yeah. It was like 5 years or something. A long time. I had a ball.
And your character, after having dealt with difficulty from her marriage, was an alcoholic from what I've read.
Yes.
Tell us about playing B. That was a long time that you were in that character.
She was a very human, grounded sense of humor. Good, it was fun to play her. And she was ordinary. She was like, I don't mean ordinary in the negative sense. I mean, she had both feet on the ground and she lived a good life.
And someone that people could probably recognize something.
Oh yeah, I
themselves.
relate to, because she was not, she wasn't perfect at all. She had a lot of imperfections, but she was very likable.
Sisters was really your long TV role.
Yeah, Dante's Peak was probably the biggest thing I did.
Oh, and I would love to one of my favorite action films of all time. But in a series, a TV series that you were in for so many years, and growing with this character, what was that like in comparison to working in a theater and working on a specific story that you repeated over and over again over the course of several nights? What were the challenges in going with a longer arc and a longer journey?
I would like there to have been some more challenges. I wasn't challenged that much in that role. It was just a pleasure. And the people I worked with in Sisters were really lovely people. All kinds of nice people. It was just a romp. I had a great time. But in no way was it like live theater.
Yeah, it was smaller family drama.
It's just a different medium almost.
Well, very much so in many respects. Again, you don't have the audience in front of you to bolster you and bring up the energy, and you're constantly having to stop and start over again.
Right, right.
Although the paycheck is I'm sure probably
better.
The
paycheck is very fulfilling.
There you go. Absolutely.
Sent both my kids to college. Well, that and my husband's income.
What did your husband do?
He's an engineer.
Engineer.
He developed the what's it called? God, see, now this is what happens when you get to be my age. All of a sudden you blank out with the names. Gyroscope.
Okay, I know what you're talking about. I wanted to go into Stargate, but before I do, you had mentioned Dante's Peak as being one of the biggest productions that you had worked on. It was a tentpole film in 1997 with Pierce Brosnan and the lovely Linda Hamilton.
Yes.
You had quite a heroic couple of scenes in that film, pulling your family to refuge through an acidic lake, that had just a few hours before been one of the most serene spots in the United States and in the film story. Just a great film and a great story for you, and a great character to play.
I remember I had a great time, and this was somewhat of a challenge. It was wonderful working with Pierce. He is a gem. I was doing a play at the same time as I was shooting that film, and he let me come back with him on his plane to do performances of the play and then fly back to the set. I mean,
because you guys shot on location.
Yeah.
In Idaho.
He was an absolute beautiful, beautiful man. And she was wonderful, too.
Linda.
Just wonderful. It was great working with children. I love working with kids. They're so spontaneous and lovable and curious, and it's just great.
What did you think of the final film?
I thought it was pretty good. I think some of the special effects were really great.
Yeah, action movies, you never know how they're going to turn out. But I mean, I remember holding my girlfriend's hand so tightly and sweating in the movie theater when the cars were going into the water and trying to cross the channel. I was like, they're going to get swept away.
And we had a thing that happened during that film where we tested something, and I don't remember what it was exactly, something to do with the boat. And then when we did the actual shot, the boat filled with water. All the kids and me and were in the drink.
Did they have rescue boats standing by, I hope?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. They picked us up very quickly.
Well, at least you didn't have any barbed wire in that situation.
No.
Oh, goodness. You admitted to me the last time that we talked that you weren't necessarily a big sci-fi fan. The role that you played in Stargate SG-1 was originally played by a European actress named Viveca Lindfors.
Oh, I know her work. She's a wonderful actress. She's wonderful. I didn't know that.
Yes, she was the one in the feature film where you carried that banner into the television series.
I'll be damned.
Yeah.
That's great. Oh, well, I couldn't be more pleased. That's lovely.
It's a good pedigree there. Absolutely.
You bet.
And they had taken the character from a more of a European background into an American one. You dropped the accent. And we just established this past year when I told you about Stargate Origins, the new film that featured a young version of Catherine Langford. We established her as Jewish. And it made for, because the enemy in Stargate Origins, the enemies are Germans. So it made for a little bit more of a tense situation there, knowing the history of what had happened.
Good choice.
You worked with Richard Dean Anderson on that television series, and you played opposite Keen Curtis.
Oh, yes.
Tremendous actor.
Yeah.
Any reflections from those 2 episodes that you did? I know I'm really picking your brain here, but with
well, I'd
Richard
love
Dean
to
and
be
Michael
able to help
Shanks.
you, but I've forgotten most everything from that era. That's a long time ago.
That's perfectly all right.
But all I remember is that it was a very pleasant experience. And I remember the area, we were in Vancouver, weren't we?
Yes.
Yeah. It was lovely there. I had not been there before, and I enjoyed my stay. Everything about my memory is positive, but I can't give you any details because I don't remember.
The character, they actually killed her off screen in season 8. You were invited to come back for a cameo from what I remember you talking about 10 years ago, and had passed on it. And so what they did was they wrote the character off and had a funeral scene at the beginning of that last couple of episodes in season 8. It was a lovely send-off. And they still managed to make Katherine an important part of the inciting incident for that story and where it went.
That's great. It's nice to know that.
Any insights that you would like to give young actresses or actors who are just wanting to establish themselves in the craft? Any advice that you can impart to those folks?
Just work hard and follow your passion. There's that just trying to do as fine a job, as honest a job as you can, is very fulfilling.
Any mentors that you had when you were younger?
Vanessa Redgrave.
Ah.
She was all the things I wanted to be. She was my ideal.
Did you work with her?
No. I would love to have. It's terribly important not to be swallowed up by that.
The limelight?
Yes. I didn't enjoy that part of the business, but it's a very tricky affair.
You have always been someone that I have looked back on fondly. I was lucky enough, to be able to talk with you 12 years ago when I was really getting started into this, just about the same time when Stargate SG-1 went off the air for after 10 seasons.
Oh my God.
It's a long time, but you are
Yes, it
always
is.
someone that I have always looked back on and said, you know what, I loved sitting down and talking with her. And I really appreciate you taking the time once again to share a little bit of yourself with us.
Darling, I thank you, and you. I wish I could have been more helpful with detail and things, but I just it's part of growing older. I think you're a little hampered, but I couldn't have been. You couldn't have been more wonderful as an interviewer, and I thank
Appreciate that.
you.
My tremendous thanks to Michael Shanks for providing those beautiful words at the beginning of our episode. And I hope we were able to honor Elizabeth's memory tonight by inducting her into the Stargate Oral History Project. And that was always the intent. I've just been waiting for the right time. If you enjoy Stargate and you want to see more content like this, please click the like button. It really does make a difference with the show and will continue to help us grow. Please also consider sharing this video with a Stargate friend, and if you want to get notified about future episodes, click subscribe. And if you click the bell icon, it will notify you the moment a new video drops, and you'll get my notifications of any last-minute guest changes. We are winding down Season 5. There's a few more exciting things in store for you this year, and then I'm going to be taking a break and doing a board exam for the first few months of next year. So it'll be a much needed rest while I don't rest. Thanks so much to my production team, Anthony Rowling, Kevin Weaver, Summer Roy, Bryce Orrs, and Jacob Oleash. My thanks to my moderating team. It's a lot of the same people: Anthony, Jeremy, Kevin, Lockwatcher, Marcia, Raj, and Jacob. Thank you for all that you do. Matt Eagle SG Wilson for his amazing opening sequences, and Frederick Marcoux at Concepts Web, who keeps dialthegate.com's lights turned on. We have a bloodbath heading your way tomorrow on Sunday. Sue Ann Braun is going to be hosting the 12th edition of Stargate Trivia on Nightmare Mode. We're going to bust them up. So stop on by and watch the carnage and the fur fly. I hope you know your episode titles. Miss you, Katherine. Elizabeth. My heavens. Miss you, Elizabeth. We miss Katherine, too. My name is David Reed for Dial the Gate. I appreciate you tuning in. I'll see you on the other side.